Good morning. Oh, I'm tired today. I live near an army base within earshot, and they were up very early this morning doing something, and they woke me up. Anyhow, it's Sacha Baron Cohen week, it seems, because he's in a couple of movies. One opened on Netflix, and the other is in the past few days, and the other is playing on Amazon Prime Video. So I'll talk about those in a second. But first, I want to talk about Roald Dahl's The Witches, which opened here in Hong Kong last night. In places, markets that have HBO Max, it's playing there. We don't have HBO Max here, so Warner Brothers is showing it in the cinemas because our cinemas are open. We don't have COVID. Well, we do, but like one case yesterday. Thankfully. With Roald Dahl's The Witches, I'm still thinking about it because I just watched it last night and I got to think about it. So I'm going to write it up, put it on my website, howard4film.com, howardforfilm.com. So you can check it out. Hopefully I'll have it up later today. I got a lot of stuff going on today. But if not, in the next few days, it'll be there. But anyhow, just very briefly, it's a remake of the 1990 film that was directed by Nicholas Roeg and starred Angelica Houston. This one has got a bunch of people involved. First of all, it stars Anne Hathaway and Octavia Spencer, with a smaller role by Stanley Tucci. Too small, in my opinion. But they're the stars, and it's written by a bunch of people. Guillermo del Toro, Oscar winner. Robert Zemeckis. Is Robert Zemeckis an Oscar winner? He might just be. And Barris. What's his first name? Why can't I think of his first name? Anyhow, look it up. He's got Kenya Barris. So the background is that Guillermo del Toro wrote the screenplay, and he intended it to be a stop motion animation film, and I guess it just didn't happen. And then Zemeckis and Barris took the script over, they tweaked it and did their little shtick to it, and so they have first writing credit, and del Toro has also producer's credit on it. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Just very briefly, I didn't dislike it. It's not getting good reviews, I gotta say. I didn't dislike it. The problem I had with it, I had a few problems with it, but the problem I had with it is that it's like neither meat nor fish. It's sort of in the middle. It's a bit too scary for kids. We were wondering, can kids see it? And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe older kids, but it's definitely not younger kids. Although, even though it's targeted to, it's sort of the story sort of plays out for younger kids. I don't know that I would take a younger kid to see it because it's a little bit too scary for younger kids, but it's not edgy enough for adults. So it's like it sort of sits in the middle of what a film should be. And the other problem, another problem I have a few problems. Another problem I had with it is that it doesn't really have the Zemeckis magic. It's funny, I use the word magic because it's a film about magic, but it doesn't have the Zemeckis magic that we saw in his earlier films like Forrest Gump and Back to the Future. It just doesn't have that feel to it. It's a lot of CGI, as you can expect, but it just doesn't. It just didn't, and it doesn't really tug at the heartstrings the way, let's say, Edward Scissorhands did. The Tim Burton film, Edward Scissorhands. It doesn't sort of have that sort of feel to it either. So it sort of sits in the middle of this, other films in this genre or in this multiple genres, I guess, in terms of animation, in terms of children's, family film, in terms of Halloween film. It sits in the middle of all of them. It doesn't really hit anything. And I think this is probably why audiences and critics are not so happy with the film, because it just doesn't deliver the goods. Now, finally, and I'll say this very quickly, the other issue I had with the film was Stanley Tucci's wig. That was horrible. Okay, we know he's bald, big deal. Look, I'm bald too, live with it. But so he had a prosthetic hair piece on his head, but you could see the line right there. I mean, it was terrible. He's got wrinkle, and then smooth. and you just saw this line right there, and I thought, oh come on, they could have touched that up in post production. I mean, that was, or fit him with a better wig. That was just really really bad for people who are as experienced as these, or the Robert Zemeckis directed film, as experienced as Robert Zemeckis. That was really amateur. So that's all I'm going to say about it. So anyhow, check out my website either today or in the next couple of days. It'll definitely be there. Now, Sacha Baron Cohen. So he's, as I said, he's in 2 movies. Both of them are streaming right now on competing platforms. The first one I'll talk about is the one that just launched, is Borat's subsequent movie film, or as the full title goes, Borat subsequent movie film, delivery of prodigious bribe to American regime for make benefit once glorious nation of Kazakhstan. Even the first Borat film had a long title too, so it's not surprising. Now, it's been 14 years since we saw this, I guess, our world's favorite and perhaps most politically incorrect journalist and TV personality. So he's back, very exciting, and and Borat is returning to America once again, and this time he's accompanied by his 15-year-old daughter Tutar, played by 24-year-old Bulgarian actress Maria Bakalova. Although I suppose she was 23 or 22 when the film was made. Well, there was, I think they started filming it. Well, they started filming it before the coronavirus and finished it during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, to say that he's accompanied by her is a little bit of a misnomer, because Tutar stows away in a wooden crate along with a monkey that was pretended to be that prodigious bribe that's mentioned in the title. Now, once they're on American soil, Borat quickly discovers that Americans remember his last visit, and he's forced to don a series of disguises that will fool people into thinking he's just another guy with a strange accent. So, quite humorously, he's Sacha Baron Cohen playing Borat, playing somebody else. So it's very well done. Now, amazingly, it works. And together with Tutar, the intrepid reporter heads to America's heartland with the goal of attending a speech given by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, so he can personally offer Tutar, because now he doesn't have the monkey. Oops, I gave something away. He doesn't have the monkey, so he's going to offer Tutar to the man. What would mother say? Now, along the way, in true Borat fashion, the pair meets with a number of right-wing conservatives, where they naively poke their Kazakh fingers in these people's eyes, skewering their racist, sexist, misogynist, and anti-Semitic views and conspiracy theories. And that's pretty much what it's about. Now, like the original Borat film, Borat's subsequent movie film is going to have its fans and its critics. And as it was 14 years ago, I'm sure, the critics are probably all avid supporters of the current American president, although 14 years ago, Donald Trump wasn't a political figure, but they support all the things that he and his administration stand for. Now, what has changed is that in the past 4 years, we've been fed a daily diet of racist and sexist tweets and press conferences, and we've watched as America tore itself apart. So, as I was saying to a friend of mine yesterday in the change room at my gym, we have good conversations in the change room at my gym. The difference between the first film and this film is 14 years ago we watched the film and looked at. Oh, thank you, Jenny. Looked at images of racist and sexist and misogynist and anti-Semites in America and went, oh my God, I can't believe there's people like that. Now we're going, we know they're out there. So, unfortunately. So, in that respect, it's not as shocking as it was back then. And so, we're not so surprised to see such ugliness on film. And now even Rudy Giuliani's now famous scene with Tutar, whom he thinks is a right-wing reporter, it doesn't even raise our eyebrows. We were talking about this yesterday as well. Rudy says that he was tucking his shirt in his pants, because he had taken off his she had taken off his microphone. He could have been doing it while lying down on her hotel bedroom bed. I mean, you can argue who does that, but let's say that's what it was. But what does it say about his ethics when he readily goes into her bedroom with a drink in his hand? That is the issue, and that seems to be missing from the discourse, public discourse. Now, while the original Borat had a coherent story to it, Borat's subsequent movie film is really just a series of pranks tied together with a bare wisp of a storyline. It's not as well written as the first film. This is what happens when you do this early in the morning. Granted, some of the pranks are classic Sacha Baron Cohen, over-the-top antics that will have viewers alternating between cringing in horror one moment and laughing at their sheer absurdity the next. I mean, some of them, and I'm not going to tell you what they are, but some of them are hysterical. Now, once again, Borat leads a crowd, in a blatantly anti-Semitic and racist song, which no one seems to find offensive except us, hopefully. You find it offensive, but humorously offensive. Now, at least on this American tour, Borat actually learned something correct about Jews in a warm scene with a Holocaust survivor. And that woman, that survivor, her name was Judith Dim Evans. Interesting name, sort of like Dame Judith Evans, but she's Judith Dim Evans. She passed away earlier this year, and her daughter sued Amazon, the film's producer, claiming that her mother had been duped into sitting for an interview with Cohen. Now, just the other day, I think it was Tuesday, today's Friday, so Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday actually, a Georgia judge rejected the lawsuit and the daughter withdrew her claim. Now, I doubt the daughter even saw the scene that her mother was in, because if she had, she would know that her mother came off pretty well. Not pretty well, very well. And even at the end, Cohen puts up an end card at the end of the film, just honoring her because she did pass away after the film was made and prior to its release. So, and I think the daughter, I don't know what her deal was, but anyhow. Now, as I said, Borat's subsequent movie film is streaming right now. It's on Amazon Prime Video. Now, all in all, I was entertained, but perhaps I'm biased because I brought the original Borat film to Hong Kong. And if you want to know more about that, read it on my website, howard4film.com, howardforfilm.com. Now, whether you'll find the film very nice or just a bunch of hooey from another left-wing Hollywood elite will depend on your political bent and on how much of a fan of Sacha Baron Cohen you are. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I liked it. So that's Borat subsequent movie film. All right, now the other Borat film that opened I think it opened last week or the week before, is the trial of the Chicago 7. Now, if you find that Sacha Baron Cohen's brand of humor isn't your thing, you have this film, because here he's in a dramatic role in Oscar and Emmy award-winning writer-director Aaron Sorkin. He's, of course, the guy behind TV's The West Wing and Steve Jobs, some other films. And this now is the trial of Chicago 7. Now, Cohen plays Yippie leader. Now, the Yippies were the Youth International Party, in case you don't know. I'm getting lots of messages this morning. So they're coming across my screen like this. He plays Yippie leader Abby Hoffman, who was one of the social activists caught up in the American government's show trial following the bloody crackdown on protesters outside the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in 1968. The role seems perfectly suited for Cohen, and it's not just because both men are Jewish, which they were, because Abby Hoffman's dead. Now, when Hoffman wasn't on stage condemning the Vietnam War, he was staging over-the-top stunts in full view of the media to decry social injustice. And even his 1971 book, entitled Steal This Book, indirectly advises readers not to buy the book, but instead to steal it from someone who did buy the book. He was a character. I think he got hit by... Did he get hit by a car? I can't remember. One of them got hit by a car. Him or Jerry Rubin, I can't remember which one. So, Abby Hoffman died pretty young. Anyhow, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But back in 1968, America was knee-deep in a war with Vietnam that bitterly divided public opinion in the U.S. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April of that year, and the heir apparent to the Democratic Party, and perhaps even the White House, probably the White House, was Robert F. Kennedy, Bob Kennedy, who was gunned down just 8 weeks later. Now, in August of that year, the Democratic Party held their convention in Chicago, and Chicago Mayor Richard Daley let it be known that there was no way his city was going to be the setting for protests. His proclamation, however, didn't stop the Yippies, the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, who were known as the MOB, the Students for a Democratic Society, known as SDS, the Black Panthers, not the Marvel superhero people, learn your history of who the Black Panthers were, and other groups from heading to the city to participate in what were supposed to be peaceful demonstrations. I think around 10,000 people showed up in Chicago to demonstrate. Now, the police and the Illinois National Guard were called in. They cracked a few heads open, and Hoffman, along with fellow Yippie leader Jerry Rubin, SDS leader Tom Hayden, the MOB leader David Dillinger, Black Panther co-founder Bobby Seale, and 3 others were collectively charged with conspiracy and crossing state lines with the intention of inciting a riot. And together they became known as the Chicago 8. And their trial became national, if not global news. Now, you notice I said Chicago 8, and this movie is called the Chicago 7. If you don't know what happened, how they went from 8 to 7, watch the movie. Now, Sorkin apparently first wrote the screenplay 14 years ago, but for various reasons it sat on the shelf until recent events in Minnesota, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Washington, D.C. spurred him on to tweak the script and finally get the film made. I know there were a few people like Steven Spielberg was attached. I think his company still, in fact, his company still did produce the film, but I think he might have been in discussion to direct it. I think Ben Stiller was in discussion to direct it. In the end, Sorkin directed it himself. Now, in fact, Sorkin has said that the trial of the Chicago 7 isn't as much about the events in 1968 as it is about the events that have taken place in the U.S. over the past year. It's allegorical. So Sorkin assembles an A-team cast for this project. In addition to Cohen, there's Eddie Redmayne, who plays Tom Hayden. There's Jeremy Strong, who plays Rubin. John Carroll Lynch, people would know him most notably from The Drew Carey Show. He plays Dellinger. There's recent Emmy winner Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He was in Aquaman, Baywatch, and he won the Emmy for TV's Watchmen. He plays Bobby Seale. There's Mark Rylance, British actor who is in Dunkirk. He plays defense attorney William Kunstler. I don't know how you pronounce that. There's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Always love him. He plays prosecuting attorney Richard Schultz. There's Michael Keaton, who plays former U.S. Attorney General Ramsey Clark, and there's Frank Langella, 4-time Tony winner Frank Langella, who plays Judge Julius Hoffman. And there's a few other familiar faces there as well, but those are the biggies. Now, in typical Sorkin fashion, each actor has his moment in the spotlight with verbose and highly articulate speeches, but it's Rylance and Langella who steal the film away from the others. They are the best. Now, not surprisingly, Sorkin does take liberties with the events as they happen. He shifts timelines around a little bit. He shifts around who said what and when they said it. He does it for dramatic effect. It's called literary license. He mostly gets it right, but where he gets it wrong is the portrayal of Schultz, who's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. In the film, he's actually, he's a bad guy, but he's sympathetic. In a recent interview, Schultz himself, still alive, there's a few of these guys who are still alive, not many, but Schultz himself said that he has no qualms about his role in the trial. He was not sympathetic at all to the activists, and his reputation as the government's pit bull was well earned. So, I think that was a little bit disappointing, but I suppose he had to make, Sorkin had to make somebody sympathetic. Now, Sorkin also fails to mention, this I thought was rather surprising, unless I missed it, but he also fails to mention in the film's epilogue that U.S. Attorney General John Mitchell, the current one, not the current, but the current at the time, he was the man who brought these men to court in the first place. He was later sent to jail for his role in the 1972 Watergate affair. I don't think that was mentioned, which is rather disappointing. Now, granted, it happened after this took place, 4 years after, but it shows what a corrupt piece of piece of you-know-what John Mitchell was. I think John Mitchell might still be alive, actually. Now, all in all, I'd say the trial of the Chicago 7 is both highly entertaining and extremely educational, not for just what happened in Chicago in 1968 and what's happening in these other American cities today, and now we got Philadelphia, but also for what happened and is continuing to happen in other cities around the world. I can think of one in particular, but I'm not allowed to say so because I might end up in jail if I do. Now, because in these cities, the right to protest is being stifled, often with brutal consequences. So I'd say the trial of Chicago 7 is definitely worth watching. It's streaming right now on Netflix. Check it out. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Have a happy Halloween. I don't have a clue what I'm doing next week, what I'm talking about next week. I am seeing a Chinese film on Monday and a Korean film on Wednesday, but I don't even know when they're opening. So come back and find out. See ya. Please wear your mask. I know everywhere else in the world is really struggling with the coronavirus right now because people are not wearing their masks. Wear your mask and you'll have one infection a day like we have here in Hong Kong. It's not rocket science. See ya.